Good afternoon and welcome to our event on tech startups and their role in the economic recovery. My name is Maria Chupre. I'm the Director of Public Affairs and Policy for the Forum for Greece. We are one of the organizations that are involved in getting this event together, which is organized by the European Liberal Forum with the support of AT&T. All of the organizations that are represented here today and our esteemed panelists recognize the importance of encouraging startups and fostering an environment that's conducive to their growth. The forum certainly is, both the European Liberal Forum and Forum for Greece, are very interested in startups as a policy area, both for the impact on youth engagement and the economic role that can be played. And certainly the applicability of this discussion stretches far beyond Greece's borders, although I think we are very much in agreement that this is an important discussion and actions to be taking in Greece. So before I turn the floor over to our esteemed panelists and our moderator, I would like to welcome and turn the discussion quickly over to Ms. Susanna Hartig, the Executive Director of the European Liberal Forum, which is based in Brussels. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome you today as Roundtable, which is part of a series named after Ralf Dahrendorf, the liberal academic and politician of German and British nationality. By connecting this roundtable, as so many in the series across Europe, we wish to underline the achievements of Lord Ralf Dahrendorf for liberal democracy on the one hand and for European integration on the other hand. Ladies and gentlemen, with great relief, I must say, we lately saw that growth is slowly returning to Greece. This year at a pace of around 0.6%. This is very positive development and we cannot emphasize it enough, the positive things. Of course, we all are aware of the fact that Greece's economy is still very troubled. The startup industry, while still small, is capable of creating benefits for Greece's economy and, most importantly, of encouraging young, talented young people to engage in this growing sector. Far too small to make a dent in the staggering jobless numbers, the startup industry is an important ingredient, I think, to further growth and employment in Athens. In fact, Greece has become one of the more unlikely bright spots in Europe's nascent tech scene. Still, there is an enormous way to catch up with tech hubs in London, Berlin, and Paris, obviously. But the country is nurturing a surprising array of tech startups, attracting funding from venture capitalists. The result, as the European Commissioner Neelie Kroes put it lately, is a digital turnaround in Greece. According to Endeavour Greece, there were 144 startups in Greece in 2013, up from just 16 in 2010. That's a great achievement. And I think that's only the start. The money invested in them has climbed to euro 42 million compared with just euro 500,000 3 years ago. I'm very pleased that we gather here today distinguished panelists who are either involved in startups themselves or lend their support to them. I'm grateful to our panelists that they have been taking the time to join us this afternoon. Thank you very much to all of you. Before I pass on the floor, I'd like to thank European Liberal Forum member, Forum for Greece, under the leadership of Dimitrios Katsoudas and also of Ms. Maria, for organizing this event today on behalf of European Liberal Forum. I'd also like to thank AT&T, represented here by Alberto Silvio, and of course Friedrich Naumann Foundation, represented by Athanasios, for their generous contributions to the series and in particular to this event. Thanks also to the German-Greek Chamber of Industry and Commerce Athens for supporting this event today. Last but not least, I'd like to thank the head of delegation here, Mr. Panos Karounis, thank you, for the hospitality here in the premises of the EU delegation. Thanks for all of you attending, and I wish us now a fruitful, good discussion and also networking opportunities this afternoon. Thank you very much.
I would now like to turn the floor over to the director of the Forum for Greece, Mr. Dimitris Katsoudas.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you to our panelists who have spent a precious Monday morning to be with us today. I believe we are as Suzanne has emphasized, we are in a crucial turning point in whatever concerns the Greek economy and the Greek society. And the promotion and flourishing of startups is a typical example of what can happen in a short period of time that is of high qualitative importance. I read just this Friday in one of the economic newspapers that the past year, for the first time in history, in Greek economic history, the exports from startup companies in Greece exceeded those of olive oil. And this is extremely characteristic of the qualitative change that is taking place in this country in a number of levels. Another thing I must emphasize, and particularly addressing you, the younger people here, is that an article I read in one of the foreign journals concerning Greece, in which it was mentioned that just as Greece in 2009 was not cognizant of what was happening to it, we did not realize that we were plunging into the most serious economic crisis since 1932. It is the same today. Today, whichever signs exist of an amelioration are not taken seriously. Just try speaking to anyone in the streets and say, well, the economy is recovering. They'll say, are you kidding? My situation is dramatic, it's horrible. It is this, in both cases, economic theory has it, that either plunging into a crisis or getting out of one is never understood the first years by the vast numbers of society. Therefore, it is crucial to create emblematic stories of success for this transitional period in order to change the economic psychology. And the economic psychology, as economists know much better than me, is crucial to the success of the economic effort. Now, I would very much like to thank our particular panelists. My friend Antigone Liberaki, who's professor of economics at the Pantheon University, and she has been a staunch supporter of the forum. This is not her first appearance in our panels. We had a wonderful symposium on the relative experiences of Greece and Sweden, which His Excellency the Ambassador also attended. And we have a book published with the finds, which is at your disposal if you like. We can give you copies of this book. It's extremely well written and very useful. Then I would like to thank the Ambassador, His Excellency Jan Versteeg, who is a quite familiar figure with Greek ministries, and in the innovative sense of the word, he is. I'm sorry, Ambassador, we're not being coinciding in our days, but even in this way, I really enjoy listening about you. And Holland, as you probably know, has supplied the task force for Greece under Reichenbach with experts on combating corruption and on collecting taxes, if I'm not wrong. And the ambassador is not just supervising it, but pressing and being very active about it. He has also turned the part of his own embassy into a sort of hub for startups, which is quite innovative, if I'm not wrong in my information. So, then Mr. Papageorgiou is one of the good examples I was just talking about. He is the CEO and co-founder of Trackbird, which I still have to understand what exactly it does about transport. But you will analyze it later.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we are most grateful to Mr. Alberto Zilio, who he is the Director of Public Affairs for AT&T, and whose support has been crucial for the success of this seminar. And we welcome you in Greece. We're delighted to have you here. And last but not least, our friend Dimitrios Pogas, who is going to coordinate the panel of speakers. Well, thank you very much for coming, all of you, and I extend my particular thanks to the panel.
My name is Dimitrios Pogas, I'm a journalist. I'm working for a well-respected business portal, it's called MEA.gr, and I'm covering and taking a really close focus on startups and technology entrepreneurship. So this is why I'm here and moderating the discussion. Just a short walkthrough of our agenda today. It's one of our speakers is going to have maximum 10 minutes to make an opening statement, and then we will have a discussion. We will try to keep it as interactive as possible with you. You can have your questions or your comments later. And one last note before we start with our panelists. If you have a Twitter account, you can log into to the internet here. The Wi-Fi password is Brussels with an X, and you can tweet using the hashtag #electevent. So let's start with Mr. Dion Liberaki.
What I would like to do today is to give a moderate view coming from an economist who does not share the enthusiasm, the wholesale enthusiasm about the issue. Because I think we need first to put a few things in context. And the first thing I would like to say is that we have to be aware that there is a great deal of overclaiming about tech startups. And this overclaiming reflects more hope rather than experience. I think it would be most useful to try and ground the discussion, to make it fruitful for the reality, especially for the Greek reality as we're holding this discussion in Athens. It is true that technology startups held the promise of sidestepping a number of obstacles facing entrepreneurs and firms in distant places and in locations where there was little else to speak of. There was a hope that we could have, besides Silicon Valley and Silicon Fen, Silicon Islands. You know, swimming in the morning, taverna in the evening, and tech startup in the afternoon. It did not work out like that. And it's not something to do with laziness in particular. I think that although startups are sexy and make the news, they remain basically small firms. And they have to be analyzed as small firms and as being part of the problems and the opportunities facing small firms. If I had to name three main problems, the fragmented market is one of them. We have a fragmented, a European market divided by 28, instead of having a national market multiplied by 28. This is a problem, and this is not a unique problem for tech startups. It's a problem for all firms, and mainly smaller firms in particular. The second is the regulatory framework. Again, the nightmare of licenses and special regulations applying to different markets, but also the burden of bureaucracy and the various tacit knowledge items of how to go around things really drain the effort from real good ideas. And of course, it would be a complete omission not to mention the credit market, the fragmentation of the credit market, because now the same very good idea, if it tries to take off in Hainan, will be financed with an interest rate which is 3 to 5 times higher than the very same good idea if it tries to set off in Heidelberg. So these issues are the common background issues facing smaller firms, and I think we need to make this discussion because it can be very fashionable to focus on firms with specific characteristics, and I do not disagree that there are some additional features, very important, that if we don't address these basic, absolutely important prerequisites for entrepreneurship and for doing business, we shall never be able to deal with the question of tech startups. If one lesson comes out from this moderate, grounded view, is that there is no way to escape reforms. I'm not sure whether the current misunderstanding is due to a hysteresis, that is a time lag for realizing the world around us. In the beginning of the crisis, we thought we were still in growth, and now that we're getting out, we think we're still in crisis. But I have my doubts. I think we are not in a new virtuous circle of early growth. I think we can never be in such a point unless we deal with reforms in institutions, markets, and mind frames. I don't see much reforms taking place around. The other day, Paul Thompson said that Greece still needs to take additional measures, painful measures, because reforms were not applied in years 2011 and 2012. It would be completely misleading to think that we somehow sidestep the reform phase and that we can move in a new growth, nirvana. So if I had to choose a metaphor, I would borrow one from the latest book I've been reading, The Sleepwalkers, how Europe went into the First World War. And I would say that it seems to me that we're sleepwalking still in the wrong direction while dreaming of a life with growth, prosperity, and without reforms. Thank you, and sorry.
And now the floor is to Mr. Jan Perstade, His Excellency. He's the ambassador of the Embassy of Netherlands here in Greece, and the embassy is running one of the cool places for startups here, Orange Grove. It's an incubation hub, and Mr. Perstade is going to tell us more about it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dimitri. And I think after the introduction by Professor Liberaki, I'm supposed to be the naively positive guy, and I'll try to do that with conviction. I will just tell you a little bit about probably why I was invited here, and that is that we started this project for young entrepreneurs with Dutch businesses and the Dutch embassy last summer, which is called the Orange Grove. By the way, it's done by a very wide group of people, both Dutchmen, Greeks, and people with dual backgrounds. Many of them are here actually, people that helped us in this endeavor. I brought some pictures, but the Commission is afraid that the Dutch will hack their system, so I'm not allowed to show them to you. So I will have to do it in words. I'll try to be a little bit brief because I think the most interesting part is probably the discussion with you. We started in September 2013 with a flexible workspace with an entrepreneurship program. You can also call it an incubator, but this is basically what it is. It's a huge space, it's 500 square meters, there's 60 workstations there, and we provide to the people that are participating mentorships, a coach to work on personal skills. Some of the mentors are here, by the way. We do networking events and master classes every Thursday. There are so-called boot camps organized by a number of Dutch universities and a Greek university in which people learn to develop their business plan and to present their proposals. We started with a group of 15 people, 11 small companies. Now we are operating at a level of between 60 and 70 people who represent 39 small companies in this place, Orange Grove. That is much more than what we had expected. You see that there is a lot of interest and there is a number of very promising participants in this program. You may be wondering, why are you doing this? Why is an embassy doing this, but also why do you think that it is worthwhile to invest in this, to put effort in this? My idea is that if you look ahead, apart from the structural reform issues that Professor Liguraki has just highlighted, there are two big challenges for Greece in the somewhat longer term. One of them is to change the economic structure of the country, which is related to structural reform, but not just that. And the other one is youth unemployment and brain drain, which is a pretty dramatic thing at the moment, as many of you know better than I do. About the economic structure, I think the basic challenge for Greece is to move capacity from the production of so-called non-tradable goods, government services, road construction, retail, to the production of tradable goods. That merits that there is a requirement for investment there. If you think that this will come from major companies investing in productive capacity in Greece, you will have a hard time to see it materialize, because these major companies are looking for investment opportunities everywhere in the world at the moment, and the chances that they come exactly to Greece are not too high at this moment, which may also have to do a little bit with the investment climate, but it's also a matter of statistics and about other opportunities that there are at the moment. So I think it is very worthwhile to look at ways to use the strong points that the country has, departing from small and medium-sized enterprises, departing from the high quality of human capital that there is in Greece, starting with the fact that there is an awful lot of well-educated Greeks that have studied at both Greek and foreign universities and that are willing to do something with that. That is a basis on which you can develop something, and whether that will produce huge companies in a matter of years remains to be seen. I don't exclude it. There will also be smaller things, but I think it is very relevant. In my country, in Holland, we found that 60% of all new jobs created are in companies less than 5 years old. So small and medium-sized enterprises less than 5 years old.
Job created?
Yes. 60% of all new jobs created in SMEs less than 5 years old. These are not all typical startups, of course, and there's also other types of activity, but I think it shows that this is a relevant thing to put effort in. And of course it might also help to get a number of people back that moved away to other countries. If I talk to people that are now in Orange Grove, some of them tell me I'm about the only person in my group of friends that is still here. The rest of them is abroad. They're working somewhere else, and I see people nodding. Lots of people of the generation between 20 and 40 moved away, basically, and unfortunately, history has shown that people that in majority only come back after their most productive years are over. Let's say by the time that they reach the age of 50, which I'm about to reach in a month's time. So the best is over by the time that people come back. Let's face it. You need the creativity, the energy, and also the lack of refraining from taking risks that these very young people have. I had a cousin, a guy that at the age of 20 had started already 2 companies and was working on a 3rd one. When I was working in the Prime Minister's office, at some point in time my secretary told me there's a weird guy on the other side of the line. He says he's your cousin, he wants to speak to you. And I picked up the phone and he said, "Hi Jan, it's Anner. I'm now setting up a company in sustainable lighting and I wanted to ask, what can the Prime Minister do for me?" Well, that's the mentality. That's the startup mentality. I mean, you need to do it with charm, but you need to have that attitude that things are possible, that you should try, and that basically there are no limits. And that is the generation that Greece cannot miss for its future, and you have to create an attractive environment for that group of people. Maybe on the point made by Professor Liberaki on the small firms and the issues confronting small firms. It is true that there is a number of issues there. Those are small firms. Some of them can grow explosively. There is a couple of examples where you have seen a very fast growth. One of the things that is important, and that everybody that comes from the other side of the ocean tells our startups when they do a lecture, is you have to dare to think big. We Europeans in general, and I think that also very much applies to Greeks, we think on a small scale. And what these guys tell us is that it's just as easy almost to start up something bigger than a very small thing. So you have to have the courage to think big and to think about other markets and think globally, not concentrate just on Greece. And then of course it is a challenge to, when eventually these small companies are becoming successful, to keep them here. That's a big challenge. Sometimes it's unescapable that they found a Delaware company and that they moved part of their activities to the US maybe, although it's not desirable. We should think of ways to prevent that. But if people do that, it doesn't mean that it's useless for Greece. Because a lot of people do keep their back office operations here. They have their developers here. Most of what their company does and buys and even sells could be here in Greece and in Europe. So there is a challenge there, but there's no reason to say, well, let's not try it. One of the objectives of Orange Grove, because the only objective cannot be to cater for this relatively small group of people, because these numbers won't make the real difference for the Greek economy. But one of the objectives is also to contribute to the buzz that is emerging at the moment in Greece. And for instance, the EMEA Business Monitor, of which I'm not sure I'm revealing a secret, but of which Dimitris is the main writer. But there's many other people now in this startup community, and they make a lot of publicity about that this is possible, and that adds to changing perceptions of what can be done, what cannot be done. It helps to grow the confidence in younger people. And here in Europe, we have a strong bias against younger people. We think you have to be old in order to do something, and it is to be hoped that it's changing for the reasons that I just mentioned. It also helps to get accepted the fact that starting a business in itself is a good thing, that being an entrepreneur is not something fishy, that it is something that is worthwhile and respectable. Many parents in Europe, in Greece, do not know that yet. They think, what is he or she doing? But this type of publicity helps for that. And it may also help to give an incentive, a stimulus to policymakers to create better business conditions for startups. Which brings me to my last cluster of points, and that is the remaining challenges that there no doubt are. I mean, it's very nice that we have this buzz now and that we've been in many newspapers, all of us, but there's still a number of challenges. One of them, the first one is grow the system, widen the basis. Some people may have heard this before, but if you make a quick calculation, there is about 5 million people living in the greater Athens area. 1 million of them will be between 20 and 40, is that correct? About 1 million. So, according to official figures, 70% of them is younger. 70% of them is unemployed. And of those, about 60 to 70% will have higher education. Then you end up with something of about, what is it, between 400 and 500,000 people that are unemployed, higher education, and should maybe be interested in setting up a business themselves. Well, then correct that figure a little bit for being too optimistic or too pessimistic. Let's say it's 100,000 people that should be interested. Do you know how many people are currently in incubators, accelerators, and other programs in Athens? It's between 200 and 300 people at the maximum. I think it's even less. There's a wide, huge gap between those 200-300 people and the 100,000 people that, according to a conservative estimate, could be interested in doing this. So the challenge is really to make this bigger. And don't be discouraged by the fact that if you're inside the startup community, like all of us here are to some extent, it seems like a busy world with a lot of actors and a lot of new players. That is seen from the inside. From the outside, there's still a lot of people that don't know that this is going on and that this is a possibility. So make this buzz bigger and make sure that many more people try to start something like that. Then you need programs to bring people to a certain stage of maturity. A mistake that's often made is that people think, I need funding first. I need a lot of money first and then I can start something. What professionals in the financial sector tell me is that the only thing they see is a huge lack of fundable initiatives, people that have reached the stage of maturity that they need to put their money in. So it's much better to have people in an entrepreneurship program for half a year or a year in order to make them serious interlocutors for angels, venture capitalists and what have you. And in that year, for the people that start something, it's important to bootstrap, to control the costs, and to find their own means of funding. And that's what anybody will advise you. Make sure that you go to all your friends and family, try to make them, to thrill them about your idea and see whether they want to help you with the initial funding. And once you're better and you've learned and you're able to present it well and you've thought it through thoroughly, then you go to the professional financiers, and then you may give away some equity in return for some money. On the penultimate point, funding, one interesting avenue could be to see whether a loan program could be set up for people that are in this type of programs. Another example that I sometimes mention is sometimes when you travel around Greece, you go to an island, you go to a nice port village, and you see this sign, new boulevard being constructed, ready 2019, it cost 4.2 million euro, financed by the European Union. With 4.2 million euros, you can of course redo that boulevard, which is nice, I don't say anything negative about that. But with 4.2 million euros, you can also fund 700 little companies with 500 euro, or 700 people with 500 euros a month during 1 year. 1 year, 700 people working on their project, not having to bother about their daily allowances.